Sahih al-Bukhari Manumission of Slaves. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Whoever frees a Muslim slave, Allah will save all the parts of his body from the hell fire as he has freed the body parts of the slave." Sa'id bin Marjana said that he narrated that hadith to Ali bin al-Husayn, and he freed his slave for whom Abdullah bin Ya'far had offered him 10,000 dirhams or 1,000 dinars. Sahih al-Bukhari 2517 reference 49 hadith 1. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Abu Dar. I asked the Prophet, "What is the best deed?" He replied, "To believe in Allah and to fight for His cause." I then asked, "What is the best kind of manumission of slaves?" He replied, "The manumission of the most expensive slave and the most beloved by his master." I said, "If I cannot afford to do that?" He said, "Help the weak or do good for a person who cannot work for himself." I said, "If I cannot do that?" He said, "Refrain from harming others, for this will be regarded as a charitable deed for your own good." Sahih al-Bukhari 2518 reference 49 hadith 2. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Asma bint Abu Bakr. The Prophet ordered us to free slaves at the time of solar eclipses. Sahih al-Bukhari 2519 reference 49 hadith 3. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Asma bint Abu Bakr. We were ordered to free slaves at the time of lunar eclipses. Sahih al-Bukhari 2520 reference 49 hadith 4. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, "Whoever manumits a slave owned by two masters, should manumit him completely, not partially, if he is rich after having its price evaluated." Sahih al-Bukhari 2521 reference 49 hadith 5. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Abdullah bin Umar. Allah's Messenger said, "Whoever frees his share of a common slave and he has sufficient money to free him completely, should let its price be estimated by a just man and give his partners the price of their shares and manumit the slave. Otherwise, that is if he has not sufficient money, he manumits the slave partially." Sahih al-Bukhari 2522 reference 49 hadith 6. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Ibn Umar. Allah's Messenger said, "Whoever manumits his share of a slave, then it is essential for him to get that slave manumitted completely as long as he has the money to do so. If he has not sufficient money to pay the price of the other shares, after the price of the slave is evaluated justly, the manumitted manumits the slave partially in proportion to his share." Ubaidullah narrated as above in brief. Sahih al-Bukhari 2523 reference 49 hadith 7. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, "He who manumits his share of a slave and has money sufficient to free the remaining portion of that slave's price, justly estimated, then he should manumit him by giving the rest of his price to the other co-owners." Nafi added, "Otherwise the slave is partially free." Ayub is not sure whether the last statement was said by Nafi or it was a part of the hadith. Sahih al-Bukhari 2524 reference 49 hadith 8. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves, narrated Ibn Umar. That he used to give his verdict regarding the male or female slaves owned by more than one master, one of whom may manumit his share of the slave. Ibn Umar used to say in such a case, the manumitted should manumit the slave completely if he has sufficient money to pay the rest of the price of that slave, which is to be justly estimated, and the other shareholders are to take the price of their shares, and the slave is freed, released from slavery. Ibn Umar narrated this verdict from the Prophet. Sahih al-Bukhari 2525 reference 49 Hadith 9. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira, that the Prophet said, whoever frees his portion of a common slave. Sahih al-Bukhari 2526 reference 49 Hadith 10. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, whoever frees his portion of a common slave should free the slave completely by paying the rest of his price from his money if he has enough money. Otherwise the price of the slave is to be estimated and the slave is to be helped to work without hardship till he pays the rest of his price. Sahih al-Bukhari 2527 reference 49 Hadith 11. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, Allah has accepted my invocation to forgive what whispers in the hearts of my followers, unless they put it to action or utter it. See Hadith number 657 Volume 8, Sahih al-Bukhari 2528 reference 49 Hadith 12. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Umar bin al-Khattab, the Prophet said, the reward of deeds depend on intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he intends. So, whoever migrated for Allah and His Apostle, then his migration will be for Allah and His Apostle, and whoever migrated for worldly benefits or for marrying a woman, then his migration will be for what he migrated for. See Hadith number 1, Volume 1, Sahih al-Bukhari 2529 reference 49 Hadith 13. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Qais, when Abu Huraira accompanied by his slave set out intending to embrace Islam, they lost each other on the way. The slave then came while Abu Huraira was sitting with the Prophet. The Prophet said, O Abu Huraira, your slave has come back. Abu Huraira said, indeed, I would like you to witness that I have manumitted him. That happened at the time when Abu Huraira recited the following poetic verse. What a long, tedious, tiresome night. Nevertheless, it has delivered us from the land of kufr, disbelief. Sahih al-Bukhari 2530 reference 49 Hadith 14. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira, on my way to the Prophet I was reciting, what a long, tedious, tiresome night. Nevertheless, it has saved us from the land of kufr, disbelief. I had a slave who ran away from me on the way. When I went to the Prophet and gave the pledge of allegiance for embracing Islam, the slave showed up while I was still with the Prophet, who remarked, O Abu Huraira, here is your slave. I said, I manumit him for Allah's sake, and so I freed him. Sahih al-Bukhari 2531 reference 49 Hadith 15. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Qais, when Abu Huraira accompanied by his slave came intending to embrace Islam, they lost each other on the way. When the slave showed up, Abu Huraira said, to the Prophet, I make you witness that the slave is free for Allah's cause. Sahih al-Bukhari 2532 reference 49 Hadith 16. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Aisha, Uba bin Abi Waqqas authorized his brother Sa'di bin Abi Waqqas to take the son of the slave girl of Zam into his custody, telling him that the boy was his own, illegal, son. When Allah's messenger went to Mecca, at the time of the conquest, Sa'di took the son of the slave girl of Zama to Allah's messenger and also brought Abu bin Zama with him and said, O Allah's messenger, This is the son of my brother Utbah who authorized me to take him into my custody. Abu bin Zam'a said, O Allah's Messenger, he is my brother, the son of Zam'a's slave girl, and he was born on his bed. Allah's Messenger looked at the son of the slave girl of Zam'a and noticed much resemblance to Utbah. Allah's Messenger said, It is for you, O Abu bin Zam'a, as he was born on the bed of your father. Allah's Messenger then told Sauda bint Zam'a to observe veil in the presence of the boy, as he noticed the boy's resemblance to Utbah, and Sauda was the wife of the Prophet. Sahih al-Bukhari 2533 reference 49 Hadith 17. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Habir bin Abdullah. A man amongst us declared that his slave would be freed after his death. The Prophet called for that slave and sold him. The slave died the same year. Sahih al-Bukhari 2534 reference 49 Hadith 18. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Ibn Umar. Allah's Messenger forbade the selling or donating the wallah of a freed slave. Sahih al-Bukhari 2535 reference 49 Hadith 19. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Aisha. I bought Barira, but her masters put the condition that her wallah would be for them. I told the Prophet about it. He said to me, Manumit, free her, as her wallah will be for the one who pays the price. So, I manumitted, freed her. The Prophet called Barira and gave her the option of either staying with her husband or leaving him. She said, Even if he gave me so much money, I would not stay with him, and so she preferred her freedom to her husband. Sahih al-Bukhari 2536 reference 49 Hadith 20. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Anas. Some men of the Ansar asked for the permission of Allah's Messenger and said, Allow us to give up the ransom from our nephew al-Abbas. The Prophet said to them, Do not leave even a dirham of his ransom. Sahih al-Bukhari 2537 reference 49 Hadith 21. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Hisham. My father told me that Hakim bin Hizam manumitted 100 slaves in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance and slaughtered 100 camels, and distributed them in charity. When he embraced Islam, he again slaughtered 100 camels and manumitted 100 slaves. Hakim said, I asked Allah's Messenger, O Allah's Messenger, what do you think about some good deeds I used to practice in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance, regarding them as deeds of righteousness? Allah's Apostle said, You have embraced Islam along with all those good deeds you did. Sahih al-Bukhari 2538 reference 49 Hadith 22. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Marwan and al-Miswar bin Makramah. When the delegates of the tribe of Hawazin came to the Prophet and they requested him to return their properties and captives, the Prophet stood up and said to them, I have other people with me in this matter, as you see, and the most beloved statement to me is the true one. You may choose either the properties or the prisoners, as I have delayed their distribution. The Prophet had waited for them for more than 10 days since his arrival from Taif. So, when it became evident to them that the Prophet was not going to return them except one of the two, they said, We choose our prisoners. The Prophet got up amongst the people and glorified and praised Allah as he deserved and said, Then after, these brethren of yours have come to us with repentance, and I see it logical to return them the captives. So, whoever amongst you likes to do that as a favor, then he can do it, and whoever of you likes to stick to his share till we recompense him. From Sahih al-Bukhari 2539. 2540 reference 49 Hadith 23. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, the very first war booty which Allah will give us, then He can do so, that is, give up the present captives. The people unanimously said, "We do that, return the captives, willingly." The Prophet said, "We do not know which of you has agreed to it and which have not, so go back and let your leaders forward us your decision." So, all the people then went back and discussed the matter with their leaders, who returned and informed the Prophet that all the people had willingly given their consent to return the captives. This is what has reached us about the captives of Hawazin. Narrated Anas that Abbas said to the Prophet, "I paid for my ransom and Aqil's ransom." Sahih al-Bukhari 2539, 2540 reference 49 Hadith 23. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, narrated Ibn On. I wrote a letter to Nafi, and Nafi wrote in reply to my letter that the Prophet had suddenly attacked Bani Mustalik without warning while they were heedless and their cattle were being watered at the places of water. Their fighting men were killed and their women and children were taken as captives. The Prophet got Jawariya on that day. Nafi said that Ibn Umar had told him the above narration and that Ibn Umar was in that army. Sahih al-Bukhari 2541 reference 49 Hadith 24. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, narrated Ibn Muharis. I saw Abu Sa'id and asked him about coitus interruptus. Abu Sa'id said, "We went with Allah's apostle in the Ghazwa of Bani al-Mustalik, and we captured some of the Arabs as captives, and the long separation from our wives was pressing us hard and we wanted to practice coitus interruptus. We asked Allah's messenger whether it was permissible. He said, 'It is better for you not to do so. No soul, that which Allah has, destined to exist, up to the day of resurrection, but will definitely come into existence.'" Sahih al-Bukhari 2542 reference 49 Hadith 25. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, narrated Abu Huraira. I have loved the people of the tribe of Bani Tamim ever since I heard 3 things Allah's messenger said about them. I heard him saying, "These people, of the tribe of Bani Tamim, would stand firm against Ad-Dajjal." When the sadaqat, gifts of charity, from that tribe came, Allah's messenger said, "These are the sadaqat, that is, charitable gifts, of our folk." Aisha had a slave girl from that tribe, and the Prophet said to Aisha, "Manumit her, as she is a descendant of Ishmael, the Prophet." Sahih al-Bukhari 2543 reference 49 Hadith 26. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, narrated Abu Musa. Allah's messenger said, "He who has a slave girl and educates and treats her nicely and then manumits and marries her, will get a double reward." Sahih al-Bukhari 2544 reference 49 Hadith 27. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, narrated Al-Marur bin Suwaid. I saw Abu Dar al-Ghifari wearing a cloak, and his slave, too, was wearing a cloak. We asked him about that. That is how both were wearing similar cloaks. He replied, "Once I abused a man and he complained of me to the Prophet. The Prophet asked me, 'Did you abuse him by slighting his mother?' He added, 'Your slaves are your brethren upon whom Allah has given you authority. So, if one has one's brethren under one's control, one should feed them with the like of what one eats and clothe them with the like of what one wears. You should not overburden them with what they cannot bear, and if you do so, help them in their hard job." Sahih al-Bukhari 2545 reference 49 Hadith 28. Sahih al-Bukhari, manumission of slaves, narrated Ibn Umar. Allah's messenger said, "If a slave is honest and faithful to his master and worships his Lord, Allah, in a perfect manner, he will get a double reward. Sahih al-Bukhari 2546 reference 49 Hadith 29. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. The Prophet said, "He who has a slave girl and teaches her good manners and improves her education and then manumits and marries her, will get a double reward. And any slave who observes Allah's right and his master's right will get a double reward." Sahih al-Bukhari 2547 reference 49 Hadith 30. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, "A pious slave gets a double reward." Abu Huraira added, "By him in whose hands my soul is but for jihad, that is holy battles, hajj, and my duty to serve my mother, I would have loved to die as a slave." Sahih al-Bukhari 2548 reference 49 Hadith 31. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Goodness and comfort are for him who worships his Lord in a perfect manner and serves his master sincerely." Sahih al-Bukhari 2549 reference 49 Hadith 32. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, "If a slave serves his Sayyid, that is master, sincerely and worships his Lord, Allah, perfectly, he will get a double reward." Sahih al-Bukhari 2550 reference 49 Hadith 33. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Musa. The Prophet said, "The Mamluk, slave, who worships his Lord in a perfect manner, and is dutiful, sincere and obedient to his Sayyid, master, will get a double reward." Sahih al-Bukhari 2551 reference 49 Hadith 34. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "You should not say, 'Feed your Lord,' Rabbaka, help your Lord in performing ablution, or give water to your Lord, but should say, 'My master,' e.g. feed your master instead of Lord etc. Sayyidi, or my guardian, Maulai, and one should not say, 'My slave, Abdi,' or my girl slave, Amati, but should say, 'My lad, Fatai,' my lass, Fatati, and my boy, Gulami." Sahih al-Bukhari 2552 reference 49 Hadith 35. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, "If one manumits his share of a common slave, Abid, and he has money sufficient to free the remaining portion of the price of the slave, justly estimated, then he should free the slave completely by paying the rest of his price. Otherwise the slave is freed partly." Sahih al-Bukhari 2553 reference 49 Hadith 36. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abdullah. Allah's Messenger said, "Every one of you is a guardian and is responsible for his charges." The ruler who has authority over people is a guardian and is responsible for them. A man is a guardian of his family and is responsible for them. A woman is a guardian of her husband's house and children and is responsible for them. A slave, Abu, is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for it. So all of you are guardians and are responsible for your charges. Sahih al-Bukhari 2554 reference 49 Hadith 37. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira and Zayd bin Khalid. The Prophet said, "If a slave girl, Amma, commits illegal sexual intercourse, scourge her. If she does it again, scourge her again. If she repeats it, scourge her again." The narrator added that on the third or the fourth offense, the Prophet said, "Sell her even for a hair rope." Sahih al-Bukhari 2555 reference 49 Hadith 38. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "When your servant brings your meals to you, then if he does not let him sit and share the meals, then he should at least give him a mouthful or 2 mouthfuls of that meal, or a meal or 2 meals, as he has prepared it." Sahih al-Bukhari 2557 reference 49 Hadith 39. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abdullah bin Umar. That he heard Allah's Messenger saying, "Every one of you is a guardian and is responsible for his charge. The ruler is a guardian and is responsible for his subjects. The man is a guardian in his family and responsible for his charges. A woman is a guardian of her husband's house and responsible for her charges. And the servant is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for his charge." I definitely heard the above from the Prophet and think that the Prophet also said, "A man is a guardian of his father's property and responsible for his charges. So every one of you is a guardian and responsible for his charges." Sahih al-Bukhari 2558 reference 49 Hadith 40. Sahih al-Bukhari, Manumission of Slaves narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "If somebody fights, or beats somebody, then he should avoid the face." Sahih al-Bukhari 2559 reference 49 Hadith 41.